see here in this example, even at 12 million particles, it just wasn't the detail level that we needed it to be. Those mesas in the front are 250 feet tall. The big ones are 1,000 feet tall. Plus, we're having an enormously difficult time keeping textures on it. We had this spray here that needed to be emitted from parts of the wave, and when we actually tried to put foam textures on top of that, they would slide and slip, as you can see in this example. I thought it was cool, but the director rejected my, hey, what if we fill Thousand Needles with saltwater taffy concept? Still think it's neat. So what did we do? We had this huge problem. Well, the answer was we actually changed the shot. Here's an animatic, just rough animatic of what we wanted to do. You can see here there have been a lot of changes. We're a lot closer to the wave. The camera is tilted up so we don't have to worry so much about that skirt. This is just a rough animatic to get an idea so we can start the conversation about what we wanted to do. Here's a flushed out model with some of the amazing modeling that Seth and his team did. Just a little bit further down the line, sort of talking about what we were going to do with this wave. And this really opened up the shot. It made it feel a lot more dynamic, more dangerous. The viewer was not going to get out of that canyon in time. So this was the approach that we went for. And I think this is just a great example of how the shot, modified over time. And I think we ended up with a better shot. So now that we were going to hit that wave's going to hit that mesa so close, we knew we were going to have to really focus on that interaction. This is some technology we started developing for that. Mere particles or dots wasn't going to hold up. We needed to feel that volume of spray. The spray might be 200, 300, maybe 500 feet tall. So this is just an example that's been put into a waterfall form when we started using it there. Every effect shot is made up of a lot of different layers, so I just wanted to break this one down for you. Here we go. That's the final shot. Here's the initial wave with some of the texturing and undercurrent. There's some foam surfaces on top, some reflection, and finally we get to our particle passes. Then we start working about maybe trying to integrate that wave into this wonderful world of Thousand Needles. Here comes the spray. A little bit of color wash, foreground rocks, a little more spray, and then we cover the entire thing with a giant wave of water. No, it's awesome. It's a great shot. And since this is Cataclysm, why have one tidal wave when you can have two? So I wanted to also break down Booty Bay for you, just the same sort of thing. Here's the wave, some of the foam texturing. Interestingly, we could never actually get the foam to look right, so we finally ended up going to shoot some photographic foam off the coast and then stitching this giant map together to cover the entire wave, and that seemed to work. Spray for the boat. Here's our surfaces, and goodbye, Booty Bay. Well, I want to talk about one other shot, which was the curtain of fire today. This is going over Dark Shore. As Seth mentioned in his presentation, Deathwing is huge. If you spread his wings out, he's about 1,200 foot from wingtip to wingtip. We knew that we were going to have this curtain of fire that was raining destruction on the lands as he flew over them, and that was going to be a really big challenge, trying to maintain that level of detail for a Deathwing to convey his scale. How do you make a 1,200 foot curtain of fire? Well, initially we tried some sprite techniques as Deathwing flies over. He's flying about a mile in this shot, and sprites are just simply 2D cards with little cloud pictures on them. You can sort of see that here as he flies over. It wasn't really working. It wasn't giving us the detail that we needed, that we come to expect from Blizzard cinematics. And I liked it. I thought it was at least initial in another part, but again, the director rejected my Deathwing spread sunshine and rainbows concept. The life of effects concepts. So this wasn't working. It was a really big problem. So what were we going to do? We decided to actually try a fluid sim. Fluid sims, this is an example of a fluid sim here. Fluid sims you see everywhere in film and cinematic production. They're not just meant for fluids, they're meant for fire, smoke, explosions, you name it. We even push our particles like embers through fluid sims so that they have more realistic motion. This was an example that we did there, and once we applied it to Deathwing, we got a lot better result right off the bat. You can see that right here. It's starting to feel very realistic, starting to feel like it's in the right world and the right scale. The final sim for Deathwing was huge. That was our big concern. It was over 40 gigabytes per frame to finish off this fluid sim, which is about 2.5 times the size of the WoW install on your computer. Now that's per frame, so if you wanted to download the entire thing to your hard drive, it would take about a year on a cable modem. So lastly but not least, we have the breakdown again. Here comes the fire final shot. Let's wipe it back. Here's our lovely matte painting, putting it into the right world. There's our fire. Here's our water, which we also did in effects. Foam textures, a little bit more color, a great set by our environmental modeling team. Embers spray off the piers, small little bits coming off the shingles, and finally the entire shot. So that's it. Now, I was very happy that Cataclysm, thank you. Thank you. I was really happy that we got to do some amazing effects for Cataclysm, put them front and center, make them almost characters themselves. But as Mark mentioned, we were unable to really do the characters that we wanted to. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Taryn Greger, who's going to show you some amazing stuff from the in-game modeling team.
Thank you, Mike. So we're going to change gears quite a bit here from Deathwing and start looking at the other in-game cinematics that we've been doing for Cataclysm. But before we get right into the meat and potatoes of it, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory on WoW in-game. WoW in-game was started by 19-year veteran Joey Ray Hall as a goal or an effort to bring more story to the game trailers he'd been producing for Blizzard for 19 years since he's been working here. This man actually modeled and animated most of the introduction to Warcraft 1. So, let's hear it for Joey Ray. So he has been making these trailers for WoW ever since it was first announced, and he really felt like it needed more story. And so to achieve that end, he actually started bringing in some community machinimators to work with him on these stories as they were coming out. He started with the Naxxramas trailer and with the Black Temple trailer, and with each one of these, even though we were up against some pretty strict limitations, the ambition just kept getting larger and larger, all the way up till Fall of the Lich King, and then finally, you know, Bolvar taking the throne. We arrive now at Cataclysm. So, as Mark had mentioned, unfortunately the Goblins and the Worgans did not make it into the pre-render cinematic. And for all that was worth, we were very, very, very happy when the game team came to us and said, we have 2 movies for you to make. One for the Goblins and one for the Worgans to bridge between the level 1 through 5 experience and the level 6 through 10 experience. And some of you who have been playing the beta, you may have already seen the Goblin cutscene. Who's seen the Goblin cutscene? Anyone? All right. So who here would like to see the Worgen cutscene for the first time? All right, it's my pleasure to present to you the world premiere of the Worgen cutscene in Cataclysm.
Look at what you've become. Those cursed beasts. They've left you nothing more than just another wretched mongrel. Do you even remember what you did to your friends? Your kind, haunting the wilds unchecked, until we found you. They've kept you alive because they still believe you can be saved. To which I must ask, is there even a shred of humanity left within you? Perhaps we will find out soon
So, the World of Warcraft team had set us up with two incredibly wonderful opportunities to plug into their gameplay experience. So their story was all set and well and good to go. What we really felt the responsibility to do was make sure that each of these movies reflected kind of the whole kit of both the Goblin and the Worgen, which, let's face it, are very, very different kits. So when we looked at the Goblin cutscene, what we really wanted to make sure is that we hit their biggest buttons. So we used as many explosions as we could. We had bickering and indecision, more explosions, panic, mayhem, and more explosions. I think great-grandpa Sapper would be proud. For the Worgen cutscene, taking a huge different direction, we wanted to really capture the vibe. So we had this caged monster, these dark, bold silhouettes that our storyboard team gave us that we just fell in love with. The dark, dreary landscapes of Gilneas, wonderful backdrop. And then we went to many, many werewolf movie essentials. So, when making an in-game cutscene, we're usually working with limited time, and we have to make sure we take as much of advantage of what already exists in World of Warcraft as we can. One example was the character Lord Godfrey, which, if you played the beta, you kind of know what Lord Godfrey's all about. But he was the guy poking the bear in the Worgen cutscene there. And we really wanted this guy to stand out, you know, and have a nice cinematic vibe to him. So when he's walking through these rainy scenes, we wanted him to have a heavier cloak, so we actually went right in and lifted Arthas's cloak right off of his back. He doesn't need it anymore anyway. For that silhouette that the storyboard artist gave us, we wanted those glasses, so Ozzy wasn't using those. And for the face, we took Tyrion's face and kind of worked up from there to make some headway. Repurposing is all well and good until we find ourselves writing a moment into our story that go, wait, there isn't a Worgen cage in the game yet, is there? Yeah, we have to make one of those. So instead of modeling this cage up from scratch, it was an idea of one of my technical artists, Brandon, to go into the environment in the internal build at the time, and he actually went around this kind of cage pen area and started prying boards off of the surrounding fences, pulling nails out of the fences, pulling the ivory, and he hewed this thing together exactly as you would imagine a WoW character in that environment would have built this cage. And the result was something that definitely married to this environment like nothing else we'd ever seen. On the subject of in-game effects, we just saw a wonderful presentation by Mike and the rest guys here with all these crazy effects in the Cataclysm cinematic. And what we tried to do was, we kind of started off with some photorealistic effects, you know, kind of pushing the limits, but every time we took a look at the effects, we were like, does this really feel like WoW? Does this fit in the game? And so we took a second pass on all the effects, and we went back and we made sure that every fire, every smoke, every particle, water splash, water droplet is somehow an asset that's been pulled from somewhere else in the World of Warcraft. And the end result always makes these things look exactly like they live and breathe and belong in the game. One place we've been able to push the limits since joining with cinematics is in the realm of animation. Animation is really how these characters come to life. And when we start a project, we'll usually do some mock-ups using, you know, the /sit emotes. We'll shoot some live-action reference, and the animators will start taking passes with these characters and iterate and try to capture exactly the lively spirit. And you can see how much of a difference it makes here in the final version of the shot when we started with, you know, /sit. You know, so other places we want to infuse some nice attitude in these characters, and these are our cohorts over in DVD video production who showed us some attitude with these guns made of rolled up paper tubes, and they really brought it for this, and it allows the animators a great springboard to get to that attitude very quickly. But then there's actually some times where the animators and this live action just gets a little out of hand. The animators really brought it, and then we love what they did on that. So, to wrap it up, one question we get a lot in in-game cinematics is, so what do you guys really do to the image besides just